blimey.
Welcome to the Deviant Gentlemen / Evolve with Emily cross-platform podcast.
Hey, welcome.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid with guys. It's a guybrid.
It is. So we have myself, I'm Shane Vitko. This is Tommy Vext.
Hello.
Miss Emily Hayden.
Hello.
And this is my beautiful fiance, Miss Kat Daya.
I'm just here for the snacks.
Yeah.
Got to have
he
a
ever do
bowl
that?
of gold
No,
and
but I'm going to
something,
start
something.
now.
Yeah. If he did that, I probably wouldn't be marrying him. So
Yeah,
Oh.
right.
Wait,
All right.
you don't have your own theme song?
no, not yet. Only in the bedroom.
What's the song?
Yeah, that's right. I'd like to know. Can you tell
What's
me
in
what
your-
it is?
Dun, 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 dun,
So,
dun. Was that the wedding march or is that the funeral march or
No,
something?
I think that's Phantom of the Opera.
Which could be interesting as well.
yeah,
Guys,
it's pretty much
We're
interesting.
trying to take this serious.
Okay.
Right? This is
Okay.
serious time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I think a lot of people, we put up the picture from a lovely tea party that we had. We had you guys over Casa de Vitko yesterday.
Is that yesterday? 2 days ago.
2
bro.
days
Well,
ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
Don't do me like that.
Whenever the power went out,
Yeah.
The only time.
really
the
Really?
white power went out.
But we had a lot of good conversations, and I feel like it wasn't recorded, and why let that go to waste when we have all these
Microphones.
Brilliant
all these
minds
microphones
and all of this equipment.
and brilliant minds to kind of talk about some of the stuff that we were talking about. So
Well, firstly, let me just say that I thoroughly enjoyed the tea.
My goodness.
Thank you.
Yes.
Honestly amazing.
I'm drinking the Earl Grey blend.
Right, but you've done something different with it, haven't you, Uncle Tommy?
I did. We made tea and then I put it in the refrigerator with ice.
You made it Americanized.
Is
a
that
little bit.
okay
I made
with
it
you?
iced tea.
I mean, I'm still kind of over here in my head thinking about it, but he said it's pretty good. So, yeah, I'll take it.
I am going to
It's-
buy a teapot.
It's
a
a
tea
little
kettle,
too
by the way.
warm.
I'm going to get you a tea
It's
kettle.
not always the right temperature outside to have hot tea.
This is true.
Just put your pinky up, Tommy. Come on. You know better.
a
know
lot
better.
of people commented that. They're like, Tommy's supposed to have his pinky up.
Yeah,
How
they were
dare
very
you?
upset.
How dare you?
Yeah. You know what I tell those people? I'm your father. Your dad. Have some respect for your old man.
Put some respect on it.
What's the one that tastes like Christmas in a cup?
General Washington's winter tea.
So good. You can have Christmas any day.
Tell us about the names of the teas because I
Yeah.
find them very informative.
So when we started Boston and the Brit Tea Company, we, she knows the tea, right? And I knew more about
Being bought from Boston.
Boston, and I feel like growing up there, that's all we hear from first grade up and through high school is like
The Boston Tea Bag
always,
Party.
the Boston Tea Bag Party,
Tea bag party.
the Battle of Lexington.
That's the song of
Concord.
the bedroom song.
Oh my God. Wait, rap it.
They've guessed it. But
so when she had mentioned this to me, I was like, that's so genius because of the history behind that and her being from England and loving tea and, me being just like a fresh prick from Boston. So I was like, I think I can be creative in this. And it also just so happened that I started watching Sons of Liberty on Stars. So I got because we always hear things, but that was the first time I'd watched something that really kind of brought life to Samuel Adams and John Hancock and Paul Revere and all these guys. So I watched that and blah, blah, blah. Needless to say, she had me try about 60 different types of tea that she had put together. And once
60
60
teas.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I kept saying, come try this tea, and it would be a hot day, and he'd be like, yo, I can't do it anymore. And I'm like, don't put ice in it.
Yeah, that's like my followers are just tired of the tea. Keep spilling, but
I don't think they get tired of the tea.
So at any rate, once we kind of narrowed down to, the ones that we were definitely going to go with, now it was like we got to come up with names. So, I just ran through some stuff, and originally some that started out as Paul Revere this or, revolutionary that ended up being a different flavor because it was like now we still have two other ones with R or whatever it was. So, and then I just would kind of, spitfire shit at her, and she was like, babe, that's genius. So Yeah, some of them took longer than others, and some of them were just kind of a no-brainer.
I think you're a little bit humble in saying that one afternoon you sat down and came with about 20 different names, and you were like, in an hour. And I was like, how did you come up with those names? And I'm like, it's genius. It's great. No one's ever done it. And I can't believe no one has ever done Boston and the Brit tea because it's so famous. So.
Are you guys going to be selling muskets as well? And gunpowder? And
with instructions on how to properly load it as well.
Yeah.
I got gunpowder tea, actually. I could get some gunpowder tea.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
Wow, interesting.
That could be the Tommy Vext.
It wasn't the greatest tasting, so we didn't run with it. Because believe me, I was dying to be like, let's make gunpowder one the runner, and we'll call it.
Yeah. And it just did. You listen. You got to the tongue don't lie.
Yeah, sometimes they just
do the taste test.
Didn't make it off the cutting room floor, as they say in the business.
This is married life, people.
You're literally the same person now. Congratulations. That's what happens. You become one person, and then you make a smaller version of your one self.
Exactly.
It's like Station.
It's like she says shit that I've grown up saying, and it's like now I'll be doing something, and I go fucking cool, blimey.
Yeah.
And it's like never in my life would I imagine saying that in an English accent or a British accent.
That's amazing.
And,
how is his? Okay, let's get the real skinny. I have a atrocious accent.
I know. I heard you do it
I've
before.
been in a relationship with an Australian. I've been in a relationship with a woman from London. My accents are abysmal. How's the big guy hang up?
I think, first of all, you should do the accent just so everyone knows how abysmal it is.
Well, it's only one. That's the problem.
That's the entire issue.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically like fucking cunt. It's like a mixture of Australian.
I don't know. Come on, you were doing it better before. You were
like,
like, the tea was boiling hot or something before.
It was piping hot, mums. Mum's the word, mumsy wumsy.
Sounds like a little boy from London,
yes,
Prince William.
Please, sir, may I have some more, sir? Oh, maybe the Queen will let me outside of my adrenochrome castle and we can have fun and crumpets today.
I would say that he is a little touch better than yours, but it's not
equally
very
trash.
Equally as bad. He's getting better, but he lives with me, so he's constantly.
I feel like he'd be more like of a Cockney, right? Like a snatch character.
He does. Yeah, all right, come over here. Darling, give me some grub.
Grub?
Mad dog cunt.
Yeah. Make me a butty right now.
That's a sandwich.
A butty?
A butty.
A butty?
What does it really mean?
A butty.
A booty?
Like B-U-T-T-Y, like a
booty.
sandwich.
Oh.
No, it's a butty. It's a buddy.
Butt.
Oh, all right.
Butty.
Yeah.
They say butty.
A butty.
Everything sounds, You say in Australia, you're like, oh, come over here and give me a booty. Like, that's
really
a little weird.
What do you call jumping jacks, babe?
Star jumps. Because
Star
you're making
jumps.
a star when you jump. It's like a
I understand that.
star.
This
Not
is
the
why.
craziest,
This is why we had a Revolutionary War.
Oh my God.
Or else we'd be in the military and they'd be like,
Could you imagine?
Star jumps, ready?
Like, all right, man, ready for star jumps down. They're like, fuck this tea.
Yeah.
Throwing the fucking tea in the harbor. Why did this started? Like, star jumps. They're called jumping jacks. Who's Jack? Fuck.
Who is Jack, though?
There's 2 bags in here, everybody, in case you're wondering. Hyped up on tea.
But I don't know. Jack used to jump a lot, though.
Yeah.
So, let's
As everyone sips.
talk.
Goatee.
Let's talk relationships.
Oh.
Let's go.
So, we were talking yesterday, and not kind of, with someone like myself, like I can never wrap my head around
Fatal attractions.
Right, fatal attraction, rape, things like that. Those kind of things don't make sense to my brain. But then again, I also had my issues with drugs and alcohol, and people don't understand that either. So it's not so much that I'm judging; it's just that there's certain things that my brain doesn't comprehend how a person becomes like that or where that stems from. So we were talking about kind of how people obsess and where. When Kat and I had first met in the beginning.
Well, can we just back up real quick? I just want to make this distinct correlation. This is one thing that I really, really fucking irks me about rape is this. First of all, it's like tea. You make hot tea. You say, "Do you want some tea?" You're like, "I would like some tea," and then you give them the tea. If somebody doesn't want tea, You don't force them to drink hot tea,
Oh, shit.
right? Like if they're asleep at a party, you don't pour hot tea down their fucking mouth. Like, I don't understand what the point. I don't know who didn't get these instructions when it comes to sex ed. It's like, listen, it is a mutually exclusive agreement that you're gonna have tea, and that's it. Okay, you can't have tea if you're sleeping. You can't have tea if the person doesn't want to have tea. If the person decides they don't want to finish their cup of tea, you stop having tea.
I think I've raped Shane a couple times then, because I'm like, drink the tea and finish it, and if you don't finish it, I made the tea for you. Drink it now, or I will pour it on.
Are we talking about tea still?
Yeah, we are. No,
I
not.
hope so.
She's literally talking about tea.
Okay,
Yeah,
we
I'm
were
so-
not talking about tea.
So anyway,
breaking it down.
I'm
for
just
the-
breaking
for the
it down.
layman.
Two different conversations
So if
here.
anybody's watching this and you don't know the proper etiquette of sharing tea with another individual, them's the rules. Anyway,
Well,
you were saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting quickly.
excellent. I'm glad. Thank you for making people think of rape with tea. Now that's great.
Well, it burns. It's hot.
That's true. That is true. No, but so in the beginning when Kat and I were dating, she was a bit, standoffish because of her last relationship that she had been in prior to us meeting, and didn't want to be hurt, didn't want to, whatever it was. She has past traumas from other relationships and isn't really willing to commit yet, right? Whereas I wanted to kind of be all in immediately, one of those things, right? Which can also not always be healthy, right? And
Premature infatuation.
right. And she pulled back a little bit and didn't answer texts and stuff like that. Now, what that did for me, if I'm being honest, was I had trouble sleeping. My brain wandered a lot. I thought a bunch of different scenarios and, ultimately had to just quiet my mind and talk to people and talk to my friends and talk to my sponsor and do some things so that I was okay around it. But at no point in time did it cross my mind to go out of my way to drive by where she lived, to drive by her work, to, do anything like that. And I feel like that's a thing where people tend to go sometimes, men and women, right? Where it's like, I need to know, so I am going to go and cross these lines and do so to achieve this. And, I think we were talking about this earlier, and really it comes down to like, what does that stem from? Right?
Like this obsession with another human. I think when someone's obsessing that much over this need for another person, it's because they're trying to fill a void that's inside of them. Because if they were fulfilled and they were whole on their own, they would never need something so badly from somebody else, even if it's another person, another presence. So I think when I recognize that happening, I'm like, well, what's missing in your life? Because a whole person who is whole from the inside out is not going to have obsessive behavior towards somebody else.
Yeah, but I think people, even who are missing some things, can still operate without the delusion of making somebody else, like in recovery, we call it making someone else your higher power, right? Because then, it can also be an addiction thing or a self-esteem issue. Like the validation of the other person becomes your self-worth because you are not working on yourself, and you, instead of doing the work or realizing, I think that I've been in a situation where the other person thinks that to be with me is going to fix the problem. And it's not even so much about me, it's about the way that I make them feel, and they cannot be okay without me. And that leads to all kinds of crazy shit because and especially with people who can't be accountable, right? Like I remember being a kid and having a 16-year-old relationship or a 21-year-old relationship and not being able to take responsibility for, maybe I was hanging out with the boys too much. Maybe I was selling drugs. Maybe I was drinking. Maybe I was getting in bar fights. And, I'm like, oh, but that's how it is. And it's like, no, your behavior and your actions created consequences. And the way that you were living was not good enough for the person that you were with, and they broke up with you. But you don't learn that until you learn how to be accountable. And it's kind of crazy where I've noticed there is a culture to people going out and outsourcing, especially with dating apps and social media. They'll go and they will create a story about why things didn't work out. And then it's the same story over and over and over again. And you see these people, and you're just like, every single person's the exact same. Like, this is what, like, okay, like, well, what's really going on? You know, and then you have to stop and look at yourself. And I went through this in two ways. Like, I went through this in a situation with somebody I briefly dated, had this laundry list history of all these, you know, public figures who had gone through this nightmare of this person, right? And I had also gotten to a place in another relationship in the past where I had dated another person who was violent and had alcohol issues and had unresolved childhood trauma issues. And that forced me deeper into therapy. So we're always, you know, as long as I'm willing to look at my part, I know that I can change the patterns and behaviors if I'm responsible. It's the same thing with people who like get obsessive. I've seen people change. Like, we've seen guys in the recovery change, right? They don't become obsessed anymore. Like, oh, I'll just be okay if I just get my wife back, you know? And it's like, no, you need to get yourself back first, because you can't offer anything to this woman. And when they take the steps and they do therapy, maybe they don't get the relationship back, but they find a new relationship that is more conducive to the new lifestyle that they're living. But I think that the main thing and is always going to be struggling for accountability, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying here, because I think so many people in this world fail to take accountability for their actions, but they also fail to respect boundaries when they're set. And I think that when a boundary is set, people think like, oh, I love them so much that I'm still going to reach out, or I'm going to step over this boundary. And they see it as, I have to reach out to this person. But I know for myself, like when I've set boundaries and they're not respected, that's like one of the biggest red flags, you know, as someone who can't respect boundaries. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
But I think as a recovered manipulating drug addict, I wanted a girl to set a boundary because I wanted to see if I could push. I wanted to push.
Oh, shut up right now.
Because that made me like, in my head, I had that God complex where I'm like, that's cool that you set a boundary with people and other things, but I'm God.
Wow.
So I'm going to push, and whether I got to be super nice, super mean.
Shut up.
If I get, you show me, it's the same thing with prison or with men. Like, go ahead and break eye contact. I fucking dare you, and I own you. I don't care if you're a fucking 7th degree fucking Muay Thai black belt. I own your soul forever.
Wow.
Maybe physically you could beat the shit out of me, but you'll never know that because I've just taken your soul from you, kind of thing. So it was that same.
It's just all imaginary, by the way.
Right. So
Hypothetically speaking.
Have you seen Mortal Kombat? He literally takes a guy's soul with eye contact.
But that's the kind of thing is where in my head I convinced myself. Meanwhile, mind you, I'm fucking terrified. Yeah. But I can't let you know that. So in my head, while I'm looking at you going, I dare you to break eye contact, and you do, internally I go, thank fucking God you break eye contact before me. But back to the point, it's that I would be willing to keep pressing, and all it takes is if you respond, fuck you, you still have fed into my manipulative
you're
behavior.
A habitual line stepper.
Yeah.
Okay, not any longer. Not longer.
He was.
I was a habitual line stepper.
When you say that now, it reminds me when I was backing off from you in the beginning, you know, and I just wasn't ready, and you were very much like, you were pushing it. I got you 100%. I'm there. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense now that you were just trying to push my boundaries a little bit.
So why don't you guys give advice to men that are doing that right now, that are like pushing the boundary over and over? Can you explain to them what they're doing by not respecting the boundaries? Like, explain.
I'm a boundary setter. Like I think I have to respect my life and my career and my livelihood. And I'm someone who publicly experienced reputation destruction, right? So I went through a relationship that was, you know, very problematic. It was the third one of my whole life. I'm 39 years old, you know, and so it's like I literally dealt with a person who was committed to bringing, like, basically tried to destroy me on a public level because she would never be able to do better than when I walked away from her. And that was her MO, right? So in order for her to maintain her ego and her, you know, her idea of herself, I had to be made less than, and it still isn't working, right? And so it's like, it becomes this continuous thing. So my stuff right now is, what I work on with my therapist is, anyone who exhibits any behaviors of extreme mental illness or erratic emotional behavior, I'm backing off. I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you today. I'll call you in a couple days. I'm going to let it cool off. Mm-hmm. And, you know, sometimes it can be difficult because there are certain things that are normal where somebody will be like, you know, you could be upset that I said I was going to call you when I got off stage, but I didn't, you know, and I'm with my friends and I'm with my band and I'm settling out and I'm doing my job and it's night and you got to go to bed and we're in different time zones. And then the next morning, if you get upset with me and it's not an appropriate thing to get upset about, I'm like, pause. And so I think, like, for anybody, if you've been through these situations or you're dealing with that kind of behavior, it's okay to pause. And it doesn't mean everything's over. You don't ghost people. Right. I don't believe in ghosting people. But I believe in creating space because I need to feel safe with people in order for me to have a flourishing relationship, whether it's friends or romantic, or my intention is that it's long-term or if it's short-term or whatever. And it comes down to respect, you know? So it's foreign to me, the boundary pushing.
You've never experienced someone pushing your boundaries?
Yeah. Well, I got, you know, for example, I leave a relationship and then I get a call from a police officer that you know, that I was involved in an assault that never took place. And then the blackmail and all the proceedings, and if you just give me this much money, I'll drop everything. And, you know, I just, that's the way that a lot of women in Hollywood remain engaged. They also make a payday out of their breakup, especially sex workers who, like, in this situation, probably were not working during the time of the relationship and feels entitled to retroactive compensation for the loss of the sex work money that would have been coming in if she wasn't faithful in her relationship. And it's like mentally ill to think like this, but unfortunately it's very common.
I think my advice to both sides, but mainly women, is too often the line is drawn in the sand, right? And it's, you know, you can go like this to it and it's gone. But if you put that line like in freshly poured concrete, that fucking line's there for life.
Okay.
Right?
Explain that.
Okay. So what I mean is, I have had women who have set healthy boundaries and they fucking stick to them 100%. Eventually, I just stopped because they weren't feeding into anything I was doing. Now, where some, like I said, if you respond, and it's as simple as this, I send a text and like, hey, just want to see if everything's cool. Hope you're all right. Just been thinking about you. You seem happy, right? Because I also don't think it necessarily has to be, I'm blocking you, I'm this, I'm blah, blah, blah. Because then I think that gives that other person a sense of power, right? Like if I have to do all these things. So I do none of that, but I also just don't respond, period. Because if I have said to you, I no longer wish for us to speak because this has caused X, Y, and Z, then I have to mean that. And what that means is, if I then reach out and say, again, you know, it's this passive aggressive, hey, just seeing if everything's cool, you look happy, glad everything's cool, and you go, oh, thanks, everything's cool, boom, that's my in. So your boundary that you set, you just gave me an inch, and now it's like.
So you're saying don't respond at all.
I'm a no responder. Yeah,
I'm a no responder.
When I'm done, I'm done.
Yep, I had to
That's
be.
it. Yeah. I'm a blocker too. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's what it comes to.
If you're trespassing on my peace, you don't get to view my life through the mirror of social media. Like,
if it's you're not being respectful and you're constantly doing shit, 100% you're getting blocked.
That makes sense.
You know?
Well, yeah, I had with my previous relationship, he couldn't let go when we broke it off, and he would turn up outside my apartment at 2 a.m. and it was like,
that's scary.
It was scary.
Yeah, that's really weird.
So, and one thing that I want you to talk about, Kat, and I know it's so weird calling you Kat. A.
I know, right?
B, it could be uncomfortable, but a lot of people, especially in this Me Too movement, where it's like, a guy yelled "fuck you" to me, so that's Me Too. No.
Wow.
But real, actual domestic abuse. Like, she tells me stories sometimes of this previous relationship, which it blows my fucking mind. It's one of those things that I just go like, how can somebody do that?
Yeah.
So tell me what that was like and how hard that was to get out of that kind of relationship.
I mean, I actually didn't get out of it through my fault of my own. The gentleman got another girl pregnant, so that was my out. So thank gosh for that. It was absolutely a blessing in disguise. But living through it, it was when I just moved to LA. So I had no family, no friends, no connections. So I was pretty much already on my own. And he created that. I was a perfect target for someone to be like, oh, she doesn't have anybody here. Let me be her whole world. Let me make sure I do all this, block her from friends. Don't let her make friends. Don't let her go out. Let me control her life. And he pretty much had me, on circles. Like, I would go out and I'd have to take photos if I was at the grocery store for too long. If I was like at home and I looked at him wrong, it would be, some sort of physical abuse.
Was this did he have a personality disorder? Like, was he an NPD
He grew up with that, I think, from his dad. He used to get smacked on the head and that was all he knew. So I think for him to maintain control over his life, that's how he would express himself. And he got very violent multiple times. And, I ended up in hospital a couple of times and it was pretty hard. And again, I'm blessing in disguise. I tried to get out of it a couple of times, but I just couldn't do it on my own. And thank goodness he was cheating on me at the end and got a girl pregnant. She turned up at the doorstep and I was like, thank God. And then I got out of it and that was pretty hard to get over. Yeah.
And I mean, how many times is that a thing too? With how many girls that I hear, I tried to get out of it, and it's like, what is the final? How do you do it without killing them?
They make you realize. They make you think that they are your whole world. Like that, I was in it. Like I was in love with him, and I was this is it.
It's like it's not a gender thing either, because I experienced this, like the psychological aspect of all these things. Like, and although I did experience physical violence from my female partner, they are never strong enough to do the same kind of damage and inflict. So they go about doing it in other ways. Now, what my question is that, one of my big issues with the Me Too movement is the cry wolf Me Too's, right? And what happens is that even myself, like after this, I was like, I almost felt there was a couple times where friends of mine were talking about their experiences, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, I actually, because I was in a situation where I was falsely accused, I just stopped believing women. And then I had to check myself, and I'm like, okay, my personal experience of this scenario is not average, right? Yeah. But, as a woman who has experienced, like, I always am interested in what are your guys' take on people that do this, whether it's for attention or revenge or whatever it is, whatever the angle is, like, and how do we sift through it? Because it's a problem.
You're asking us what's our opinion on women that falsely accuse men.
Well, and how do people like me who go through that not be dissuaded from taking true victims seriously?
That's a really hard question. I think where my mind goes in this entire scenario is I think it's up to us as individuals to never put ourselves in any circumstance where it's he said, she said. Like, I personally, I have very strict boundaries around that, and I will not put myself in any sort of scenario where it's my word against someone else's word, because one, nothing bad can happen, and two, that's what sucks about it is, let's say that something did occur and it's me versus him, and then people believe you or not believe you. That's a really crappy situation. I think the women that falsely accuse men, I think it sucks because it takes the, I guess, I don't know what the word is, But it's like, it just takes away from the people that have actually experienced that. And it like dilutes their actual experiences. Just like you said, like people were confiding in you about their experience and you weren't able to have that same level of compassion because you're like, well, fuck, are they lying too? Which makes sense based on your experience, but it just sucks because it dilutes that person's real experience, which, you know, when we're talking about the Me Too movement, this is something that like traumatizes people for their entire lives, you know, like actually going through that is, really horrible and something that like nobody should ever experience. And what's worse is that because of everything happening, there are so many people that live their entire lives that feel like they have some sort of responsibility in it or that it was their fault. And I think that the false accusations that are going around like reinforce that in people and reinforce that in the ones who actually experience this horrible thing. And it makes it even harder for them to open up about it, even in a therapy session. Maybe they're not coming out about it. But these people there's so many people, like the Me Too movement's big, but there's so many more people that will never talk about it and will never be open about it. And it has to do with what we're talking about right now. But man, I wish I could just like encourage all of them to go and like, talk to one person, talk to a therapist. You don't have to join the movement. Like not everything that you've been through is for other people's knowledge, but
you don't
man.
I get that.
Yeah. Like
it's hard. Like I've dated several people, all have at some point in their lives had some sort of abuse story. And I've dated a lot of people. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
it's like,
more common than you think.
And I think too, where it's like you do get these people that want to join a movement and finally like, oh, here's something, and like, you know, this gives me a voice. But then I feel like, you know, there's someone like you too, where it's like, how often did you have to lie and make up stories to your family and bring him to family events and stuff and pretend that everything was
all
cool?
the time? Yeah. And it's funny because I really don't talk about it that often. I'm not very open with it. And I think maybe that is because everyone's so, you know, there's a lot of false accusations that go around, and it's like almost makes you feel like you don't want to talk about it because are people going to believe me now? So I think I've kept that close by, and you obviously know about it being things that we go through because sometimes the trauma comes up and it's like, wow, you're not that guy anymore. You're a good guy. So, but it is hard to talk about.
Wait. Let's make sure we're clear about that. Because you made that sound like I'm not that guy anymore. Like,
oh no, I mean like no. Like
you're not
sometimes when
guy.
you're like, say for example,
all
like
the
when
TikTokers are like, we knew it.
So like when we're arguing and all of us, like, you know, when you go into like, I think that you're the guy who I used to be with, and then I'm talking back like, don't do that, and I'm like, I realize you're not that guy.
I was clearing it before the
before
ABC
TikTokers start coming.
But that's interesting too, because there is a lot of work to do to make the differentiation between a current partner and your previous abuser.
Yes, I agree.
And like I've been in the situation. It's interesting to hear that perspective of having to lie to family members. Like I remember like having to go to family functions, and you know, I'm in a relationship with somebody who is unstable. I know why they're unstable. I know who, you know, they were abused as a child. This person is a member of their family, and I'm like having to have Christmas with this man who is a pedophile and a child abuser and an alcoholic. And everything in me is like, I should obliterate this man's like from the planet. But out of request from my partner, I'm treating them with respect.
Wow.
And you know, it's heavy. It's heavy.
I think it's good that you do share your experiences in, you know, instances like this, because it's one thing to share an experience and make it your entire identity and make it a whole movement and make it part of your business and make it your every single day life. But when you're just naturally and genuinely sharing like, hey man, I went through this and this is what I experienced. This is what I learned. I think there's so much power in that. So I think it's incredible. Thank you for speaking up on that. Because, you know, I know there's so many people that experience like abusive or obsessive relationships. And I know for myself, I've never experienced like a physically abusive relationship in my romantic relationships. But there's psychological abuse as well. And like, that's really difficult. And I've been in relationships before where I literally couldn't get out. And like, it sounds so dumb to say out loud,
but it's true. And when you're in the moment, there's no way out.
Yeah.
Like, you try. And even when you try, it's like, you don't want to sometimes because you're not sure what's out there because you've been so in this bubble of this relationship and it's your world.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how self-worth gets. You know, it's like I have stayed in relationships too long, right? I'm like, why did I stay this long?
I think everyone listening can identify that. How many people here have stayed in a relationship too long?
But I think, you know, I think it's two completely different things, right? Where like, you know, a woman is somewhat trapped because of physical abuse, right? Where like,
yeah, but men get trapped because of financial abuse.
Yeah.
So do women.
Right. But what happens with I mean, maybe not even men, but myself, what kept me trapped was low self-esteem. Just like you said, right? Low self-esteem and low self-worth. I can't do better. This is the hottest. I'm never going to date a girl that's as hot. I'm never going to date a girl that will put up with me because I'm such a piece of shit. And I found somebody that dealt with me and knows that I did drugs and know that I went to prison. And like, this is as good as it's going to get. You know, like my dating pool was like, you know, where are the girls that are like fucking either strippers or going to prison or like, you know, I need you to have just as matched self-worth as myself so that you won't fucking leave me, you know? And I think, you know, now being in hands down the most, probably the only healthy relationship I've ever been in, where these things do come up, right? When we argue and then something happens, and what's it remind me of? That toxic relationship that I spent too much fucking time in and didn't get out of. And now I don't see her anymore. I see that person. And now I have to learn to recognize that and go, wait a minute. It's the same thing that we learn in recovery and everything, right? And the same thing will happen with her where something happens and her response to my tone or what I say comes off as, right? Because as you know, we get tuned into like your body tells you, oh, I know what's happening right now. Like when you take off in a plane, you can close your eyes. You know the minute those fucking wheels go up and you take off because you know that sensation. So if you tell me that, you know, I'm on a bicycle, I go, what do you mean I'm on a bicycle? This is that feeling I get when I'm in a plane. So it's that same thing of kind of retraining yourself to go, I know this feels like that right now, but it's not that. And once you know, we've worked through a lot of stuff and that's come up and we've had blowouts and arguments. And then once cooler heads prevail and we come back and get honest and get vulnerable and I'll ultimately be like, hey, this is what that reminded me of and this is how it made me feel. And then this is what that reminded me of. This is what it made it feel. Okay, I will try to work on this and be more aware of that. You try to work on this and become more aware of that. And it's not like the next day, poof, it's gone. But, you know, again, in breath work, there's a thing that's where awareness goes, energy flows. You know? So 80% is awareness. The other 20% is actually taking action and fucking doing something about it.
And what's great about you guys working together on that is if you both have the awareness to each other's own baggage, it's great because you guys can like call it out on each other. Like, hey, like this is happening right now. And if you have that open mentality and attitude, then it's like, it's easy to communicate with that. Like, oh man, you're right. That is happening, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you guys ever play What Did You Hear Me Say?
That's a good one.
No, but
we do a thing called What's the Story You're Telling Yourself?
Yeah, what's the story you're telling yourself?
So when she starts, you know, whether, you know, she's all of a sudden comes back and I'm like, hey, what's the story you're telling yourself?
What is going on in my head?
Like,
and usually it's something I've made up.
Because that's not what's happening. She's like, well, you just said that you hate me and I'm fat. And I'm like, hold on. What?
I would never say that. That's an example for the record.
Like to me, what I hear is so drastic. And I'm just like, that's not what happened, you know?
I just want to eat my snacks and go to sleep. Hate me, I'm fat. Pass me the Cheerios.
Honey bunch of those.
But yeah, funny. No, absolutely. What's this one though? What is it? Is that the same kind of concept? What did you?
Yeah, because it's like, my friend Sam from BNR taught me this. He's like, what did you hear me say? You know, he was doing this in his marriage, and you know, he'd be like, well, you said, you text me and like, can you bring home milk? And it was like, what am I, your bitch? Like, oh, now I gotta go to the fucking grocery store after I've been at work all day and picked up the dogs. And you know what I mean?
Like the tone of how someone says it, how you're hearing them
but that's
say
because like, and that's the thing too. And the other thing is like texting.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, texting is information, not communication.
Yeah. So
it
true.
is not communicating. It's info, right? Like I don't communicate with a book. I read the pages and I get the information. So you're sending me information, but you're not communicating. There's no inflection. There's no emotion. There's no tonality. So there's a lot gets lost in translation in emails and texts.
That's what's good about having you as a friend is that you're a big
voice texter.
Voice texter.
Oh yeah.
So
it makes for because there'll be times like when you respond and I'm like, oh fuck, he's busy. Like I probably shouldn't bother him. And then next thing you know, a minute and a half thing comes through. It's like, hey, I'm driving, bro. I just can't text. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I thought he hated me. Fucking,
He was about to go.
right? Like, because that's
Shane, what's the story you're telling yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I also do
Tommy
that.
Vex doesn't want to reply to me.
I also
right
do
now.
that because I don't want to crash while I'm driving because I've done that before and
But again,
I've rear-ended
crashed?
somebody on the 405. Not seriously because we're only going 2 miles an hour because it's
405.
It's the 405. You know how very California.
No, I mean, I think that's a thing though. Is we also misinterpret text a lot because we read it in the tone in our head. So I always read it with that like Boston dickhead thing. So it's like I love
That's
you,
awesome.
and I read it as like, what the fuck you mean you love me? What are you saying? You know,
what's going on here? Like, is this a setup? Like,
I bet my texts sound a lot funnier in your voice.
Don't you find though, like they say that when you love someone or you really know someone, is that when you read a text, you'll hear their voice as you're reading it. Like I obviously always hear I hear Emily's when she texts, and I'm like, oh,
You love me?
I must do.
But I think, so getting back to that too is so we do that. The two things that we've been working on a lot is what's the story you're telling yourself? And then do you want comfort or do you want solution?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a
that's
great
huge.
one.
Explain that for the listeners.
Do you want? No, sorry. I want comfort
Right now.
So, like, say for example, he's real good on like giving me advice when I'm having a meltdown or something. And so it's like sometimes you just want a hug as a girl. You just want comfort. So it's like he comes over to me. He's like, "Do you want comfort or do you want a solution to what's going on right now?" And sometimes I just want comfort. Bring me the snacks. Give me a hug. Kiss my head. Rub my feet. Or sometimes I want a solution. So, and it really helps like kind of go through. Because sometimes he was very good at giving me solutions. And I'm like, as my love language, I'm like, I just want to feel like the hug and the comfort. So now we've worked on that. It's become really good.
I learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's both. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's
sometimes in
comfort me
both.
while you give me solution.
Yeah.
Because again, I think that sometimes I kind of, and again, this could be due to my own trauma, my world, or whatnot, but I'm not a big like, oh, come here and let me hug you to make it better. That was never really a part of my story. So, I see this happening and I'm like, well, here's what you need to do. And don't allow this to happen and this and that. And sometimes that's not always. And I know that through.
We're problem solve. Like we find a problem. And especially for our women, we're like, we got to solve this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes it's like, this is something I've said in several relationships once I learned it. I was like, is this the part where you want me to just listen or do you want me to fix it? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like, I just want you to just listen. And I'm like, okay. And I'm just like, And in my head, all the things I'm saying, I'm writing them down. And I'm like, as soon as she falls asleep, I'm going to get on the computer and fix all this right away.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Next morning, there's a whole list. Yeah, you're like, hey, I called AT&T and everything's fine. Yeah.
Superhero Tommy.
Tommy, it's like more like Timmy though, like Tommy.
We should talk about gender roles because I think in today's society there's a lot of distortion of gender in general, but also just gender roles. And I kind of want to go into like our own personal opinions on it, right?
Like traditional heteronormative gender roles?
Like what do we personally think about that?
Like as in like relationships within the relationships, I think.
Yeah, like let's talk like for us, let's talk about how we personally feel about like the woman's role and that kind of thing. And
I'm all for the old school kind of like, women should take care of her man. And I'm not saying, wait on him hands and foot, but I like keeping my man and treating him well, making a good home, cooking, doing all that stuff. And I think that's been lost over these years with all this feminist movement and everything. And so many more and more women are just not doing that. And I feel like it's a reflection on like people who get divorced. Like you look at like all these older couples who were together since like 1956 because they were there, they stuck it out, they went through the hard times, they took care of their man, they had their roles. And I feel like it gives me comfort to have that role because I feel like he has his role as a man. He'll come and kill all the bugs in the house and do all like the hard, heavy lifting. And I like that. And I never grew up with that because I grew up in just like a girl's like family. So I appreciate having that man.
But also,
the Orchid man is here now.
Right? Get my bug hat on, the headlamp.
The headlamp.
And,
Harry headlamp.
Yes.
Some roaches here. Looks like you guys got termites.
You should have brought the headlamp.
No, don't let me the headlamp.
So, but also, I don't want that to get, you know, misconstrued as that it's just like, woman, stay home, you don't get sneakers or any footwear, stay in the kitchen, sneakers. Baby on the hip, make me some chicken pot pie, do my laundry.
Because I work too. And
because it's also like, also own a business with me.
Yeah.
Run a business.
Do it together.
Like,
that's what I feel like.
I want you to be successful. And even if it was like she had a business and I was a janitor and she made more money, like I don't necessarily need to be like, well, I'm the man, I have to be making more money. It's just like, as long as I'm a man doing the best that I can and I'm showing up every day and being, you know, what I consider to be a man to her, which is love and loyalty and respect and doing the things like, you know, I take out the trash. I, you know, do the bugs. I hang things up. I pull in the heavy stuff. Because if I'm sitting down and like I'm playing video games and she's like, babe, can you help me with this? Is heavy? I'm not like, no, go work out and get stronger. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course I'll help.
Go take some tests and call me in 3 months.
Right.
Like
it works though. Like it makes our life to be able to come together and work together because we both take care of our own little things. And I love that kind of relationship where, you know, it brings me comfort, and that's how I
well, I think it's supposed to be like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what this whole ideology of like, I don't need no man. It's
right.
like, well, you don't need anybody, but we're not meant to be alone. Like
we're here for human connection.
Like I want to be, you know, I used to be like that. I've dated people who needed me, right? Because of abandonment issues, maybe because I'm adopted, maybe because of whatever, right? And so that always goes wrong because the person acts on me like a drug and I feel a false sense of security in a relationship where that person needs me, but I'm never fulfilled and I don't feel wanted. Right. So the love is always conditional, you know? And I think too, it's like, you know, I've been in relationships. I come home from tour and I'm not, you know, I just sold out. I just played a sold out tour, 10,000 people a night, signing autographs, doing my thing. I'm up. She's up at 6. I'm up at 6:30. I'm cooking breakfast, cleaning the house, and packing her lunch for the day. And then I'll go back to sleep when she leaves. And then I'll get up and I'll start my day. You know, I've been in a relationship. When I lived in New York City, I lived in a 4-story walk-up. And, you know, I was a bar manager. I got home at 4 a.m. My partner got up at 6 and then had to lug all of her hair and makeup products down a 4-story walk-up at 6:30 in the morning. So I'd wake up 2.5 hours after I went to bed, bring all the shit downstairs, come back up and do it, you know. And I was okay with that. I like something I deeply enjoy being of service to my partner.
Yeah.
Like acts of service.
It's
not like, you know, I'll do the dishes here. I'm like, I wake up, I'm cleaning up. Like, I'm like, all right, cool.
You
like,
were putting rubbish away in our
Came
house
back,
the other
the
day.
trash
You were
can.
doing all that. I was like, Tommy, you were
just
wiping
like,
my
okay,
surface.
yeah.
I was like, cool.
Yeah, but it's like, it's something that like, you know what? When I was like 3 months sober, my godmother died and I was terrified, right? Because I hadn't gone back to Brooklyn and I was like, I have to go back. And my sponsor was like, I was like, I don't know if I can go. Like, what if I drink? Like, what if I get high? Like, I'm going to be around all my old idiot friends and my family and they're, you know, they're crazy. And he's like, listen, go be of service. He's like, if the trash needs to get taken out, take out the trash, wash the dishes, shake people's hands, help this, help that, ask if you could drive anyone anywhere, just be of service. And I went to that situation and it's crazy that this is how I changed. I saw the value of just being whatever you guys need right now. This is a tragic situation. It's very sad and unexpected. And now that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy. So if something's going on, good or bad, it's just like a little extra, you know. If my partner's working, like I'll clean her. I don't care.
Yeah, that's the thing where it's like, you know, let's say I worked from home, or she worked from home, or I work from home, and one does and one doesn't. It's not like the house is a mess. Well, shucks, I'm not the woman.
He still vacuums and stuff and does that stuff.
It's like, what exactly? Like
I have money for a maid.
Yeah, it's like, what can I just had to fire my lawn guy. But
are you the lawn guy?
Yeah.
I told him earlier. I was like, "Are you cheating on me with the maid?" Oh yeah, I am the maid.
That's amazing.
But you know, I think it is exactly that. It's like, what can I do to be of service to my significant other? And it's like that doesn't have to be that I have this type of money or that I do this. It's, you know, learning your person and learning what that means to them, you know?
Yeah. And I think ultimately it's about just being the best team that you can possibly be. So yeah, maybe you take up some certain roles in most scenarios, but like you're saying, like a team player picks up the slack wherever it is. I know for me personally, I actually love gender roles, and like I am an independent woman. I'm about to be 30 this year, have my own house, like I'm living my life, I'm growing my business, like I'm doing the thing, and I'm a very independent woman, but like I cannot wait to be all that is woman to my man. You know what I mean? Like if he wants me to make him a sandwich, hell yeah, baby, I'll make you the best sandwich. I will make it with love. And when you take out the trash or when you do a
sandwich.
I know, right? I'm kind of hungry too.
Keyword, you have to be my man.
What about your girl?
Well, I'll give you some too.
Right.
I don't give that wife energy just to anybody. Right. But it's like there's something so beautiful about that. And
I smelt her armpits too, and I've feel love.
Okay, we're gonna have to explain. Did you guys
Deviant
announce
Gentlemen
that
deodorant in stores now.
I'm sorry.
Insert commercial. Thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is getting real weird.
I just wanted a sandwich.
She did.
Anyways, I was saying, I genuinely can't. You know, I can't wait for that. And something that I actually do now is I'll cook for myself a nice dinner like twice a week or so, and it's because I want to be a good wife, so I need to start dressing and acting for the job that I want, not the job that I have.
I like
you know,
that.
so like I never want to lose those skills. I never want to lose that, like, you know, setting time aside to really care about like what I'm putting into my body. And I have my little romantic dates on my own, and I'm at this really good point where like I don't miss anything and I don't need anything. I'm just like so good and so happy with where I'm at. And so for me, like I love the gender roles because I think that when they work together as a team, like how you guys are saying, it's just beautiful. It's dynamic. It's the way that it was intended to be. I think we can learn a lot from nature. Like I've been watching a lot of Disney Plus, like the little nature videos.
Courtesy
thanks
of
for your login.
Anybody need a login? Hit me up.
His login is on the screen. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I guess too, it's like, you know, gender role is just finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Now, if,
Yeah,
like,
and you
you're
guys as a
woman
couple.
and like we know people where like the woman is, you know, she's the boss, and like me, you know, I mean, they're always the boss, but what I mean
Damn
is
right.
like, you know, with a woman, like where I kind of go like, damn, like
With a
it's like her choice whether or not this guy can like go out today or do anything, and like, but that he's cool with that. That's cool. That's not for me. But if that's what works
That's
for
not
you,
my cup of
that's
tea.
cool. You know, we have also friends that are like, both work 9 to 5, don't do shit during the week, and then like do nothing on the weekends. That's also not us. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't mesh with me. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. You know, and again, like where I hail from, never would it be a hyphenated last name. Like the woman takes my name and that's it, because it's out of respect.
Hell yeah.
Thank goodness. I want to get rid of my Dale, the one that Tommy was
Your
singing
name is
earlier.
your last name's already Vitko in my phone. It has been since I put you in there.
I love it.
Yow. That was my,
Do you guys have a wedding date?
Oh boy,
so
oh boy.
that's
What did
another
you just open?
conversation, Because
I'm just wondering if
mean-
you've booked the talent yet.
Tommy Vext, the wedding singer.
we did hear
guys.
Imagine.
we did hear
I
the
love
acoustic, so
I'm
you
Yeah.
know,
gonna
don't get it twisted.
I'm gonna do Billy past the 3rd grade for your first dance. The Billy Madison song.
Oh my god.
Nah, I mean we're hoping for October. We've looked at a venue in North Carolina.
So we're traveling for this.
We are.
Yeah, because
Okay.
my dad's, you know, older and can't travel, and ultimately, you know, for me, that's the most important person to have there.
And will your family is gonna fly over, or do you have some of them here? Or
So half my family's in Orlando and the rest is in England, and this is the difficult problem we're having is because of the fear that they've instilled into the people in England to travel, the
COVID.
masks, the
Yeah,
COVID,
yeah.
and they're just very much like, we're not coming to your wedding this year. If it's this year,
why don't you
So-
just send them white suits with gas masks?
Just send them like
And
the
let them
ET.
travel in it.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
hazmat suits.
Just, the hazmats. So like we do have a backup plan. So if that is the case, then April for sure. But at the
I
end
mean,
of the day-
ultimately, it's we really. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's
That
like,
too.
ultimately we do
not a bad
one.
idea.
We do one in the
We'll
States.
go to both.
Yes.
As long as I'm invited. I don't
as
know.
long as you're booked.
I mean,
Well, you're the wedding singer, so.
it's looking up until this point. I haven't even considered that, but it's looking more and more like do one in the States and then go to England and do one there too. But
Yeah. Does that mean I get 2 dresses? Because I've already found one, so maybe I find another.
But the tough thing with
No
weddings,
answer.
the
No
tough
answer.
thing with weddings that I've seen is like how much realistically other people make it about them.
So true, man.
And I've never experienced that before, obviously. But the more that on for both of us, where it's just like
Wait, people make the wedding about themselves.
Like the guests in the family
we
make it
can't-
about them.
Oh,
like for their date.
Yeah.
So what's convenient for them? And
Totally.
it's like
Yeah, someone said
thank
that they
you.
were
You'll
booked.
do me the favor of letting me know when we can have our wedding. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
you just gotta get like Slipknot to headline, and then everyone will be like, oh no, we'll be there.
I'll just have you. It was Bad Wolves. I'll have you fill their date.
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
That's going to be the Instagram clip you post. We went there.
All right,
hot.
boys
Is
and
it hot?
girls.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great. I mean, this is we had Emily on Deviant Gentlemen. Emily had each of us on Evolve with Emily. Yeah, all 3 of us have been on Evolve with Emily, and this is Kat's first appearance on a Deviant Gentlemen podcast.
I've been waiting for the
Got the
right
crowd going
time.
wild.
Waiting to do that.
What do the other ones do?
Just press them. Let's see.
Crickets.
Oh, Jiminy Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket.
What's that one? We can't hear.
Magic.
Can't hear
It's like
it.
a fairy.
I hope it's fun.
Okay, I'm just.
It is a
pushing
lot
buttons.
of fun.
I'm pushing buttons over
I've
here.
pressed mine a few times too, and I'm like, babe, come in here. You gotta hear this.
Yeah.
It's fun, right?
I'm like, really? For the 69th time today?
Yeah. All right. Anyways,
69.
we.
That was so good. How did you know?
Random guess.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in.